Joining me to talk about what was an epic sort of saga, a winding recruitment, is the guy who's covered it longer and more extensively than anyone on the recruiting beat, and that is 24/7 Sports national recruiting expert based in the East region, Brian Dohn. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Nothing like talking to you for a while, Sam. Appreciate it.
Right. Well, you know what? It's fitting, right, that the decision comes all of a sudden for George Rooks. I mean, this is a recruitment that for a time people thought it was going to go Boston College's way. For a time, people thought it was going to go Penn State's way. And there was, it sort of bounced back and forth with Michigan as well. But again, not until there was certainty as far as the staff is concerned did we see this round back over into Michigan's category or column. Just take me through your perception of this recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is, I mean, you hit it on the head. I think at one time he was going to Boston College. I think at one time he was going to Penn State. I think at about 3 times he was going to Michigan. Virginia Tech at one point looked good. We always talk about kids and why don't they make a decision? Why don't they make a decision? And then when kids take their time and do their due diligence, we're like, well, what took so long? And it makes sense with Michigan and George. Look, the family knows Michigan well because his sister played basketball there, Taylor. They love the academic profile of Michigan. That's very important to the family, is not just football, but the academic part. You want to make sure that, look, I think, Sam, everybody knew by kind of mid-October, late October, that Michigan was going to have some changes on its coaching staff, especially on the defensive side. So if you're George Rooks, you say, you know what, I like Michigan a lot. I want to make sure D-line coach Sean Noah is still going to be there. I want to see who the new D coordinator is going to be. What are they going to run? Let me make sure they're not moving to a 3-4 or something that doesn't fit what he wants. And so he took his time, and you still have a week left before you can, before signing day. So there's plenty of time there. And it just, the due diligence factor wasn't with learning more about the programs or the schools, because he's been to all the campuses as much as he needs to be. The due diligence was, hey, Jim Harbaugh, finalize your staff. Now, the NFL season had to end for that to happen. So, yeah, I mean, it's been, give me something to do for the past 2 months when you knew where a lot of other kids were going. So, with George Rooks, okay, we're good there.
Right. Hey, man, it's one of those things where I think bigger than anything was Sean Nua's retention. I really
agree.
I really think that George, I think his dad, I think they really connected with Sean. And, I think there's actually some versatility. I mean, in a 3-4, that is a situation where I think he can play on the outside. He can be a defensive end. I think there was some thought that, maybe in a base 4-3 scheme, he might kick inside. But Michigan, I think their base will be 3-4. I think there'll be multiple, but I think this is one of those situations where he could play defensive end. And once he got word that Sean Nua was going to stay, I think that was, if there was a clincher in this, I think it's that. I just really think the connection was strong there. I think he believes in Sean's ability to grow him, to grow his game, and really to grow his game in this scheme. I think that was the next selling point, because, new defensive coordinator Mike McDonald came in the door and has been on the phone with the kid and has really convinced him that, hey, you have a place, you have a real fit in what we're going to do. And I think with Sean Nua pitching that to him, that was all he needed to hear to say, hey, Michigan's the place for me.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense, because we could talk all about Jim Harbaugh. We could talk about Mike McDonald, the new DC, but who's he going to spend the most time with? He's going to be in the defensive line room. That's the guy who's going to coach him every day. That's the guy who's going to talk to him every day. If they're not going to see him because he's not on campus or it's a weekend or what have you, that's his guy. That's the one he's going to talk to. So to make sure he has a relationship there is absolutely enormous. And you want to make sure he's comfortable. And I agree. I mean, listen, I think when you watch his film, and I've seen George play in person, a bunch of times. I've seen him at practice. I've watched his film. I've seen him at camps. I mean, go down the list for years, not just this year or last year. And I don't think he's that really crazy, explosive guy off the edge, but he's got a great frame. He's got length. He if you're going to put him in the middle of the defensive line where he's going to, anchor in there and really take on the run game and take on 2 blocks and let the linebackers clean up on some tackles, that makes complete sense to me. If you're going to put him in a 3-4 and have him on the edge and he comes off, I think that makes a lot more sense to me than just putting him at the edge on a 4-3 and saying, go get the quarterback or get up the field. I don't think that's his game. I think it's more inside to where, he can really just take on blocks and use his hands and get off those blocks. I don't think he's a kid that's going to be getting up the field in a heartbeat, but that's okay too, because not every player needs to be like that.